This is episode 32, the passive structure. Now we've learnt about subjects and direct objects now, so in this video I'm going to make a slight diversion to look at the passive structure of a sentence. The passive structure is a way of organising information, allowing us to put the object at the front of the sentence, thereby turning the object into the subject. Now this is a way that we package information when we want to emphasise the object or omit the subject. And while information packaging is not something we cover in this video series, but rather in a later series called English Discourse, it's relevant here because it gives us a way to test for the direct object in a sentence if we're not sure. So let's look at the passive structure now and how it works. As you know, English word order is subject, verb, object. So here's an example here. The cat chased the mouse, and here we have a picture of a cat chasing a mouse. Now if we wanted to put the mouse first and say it in a different order without any other changes, then it would come out as the mouse chased the cat. Now that has a completely different meaning, and here it is drawn here, a most unlikely scenario. Now there is a way that we can put the mouse first in the sentence without changing the meaning, and that is if we use the passive structure. The mouse was chased by the cat. So this is the passive structure of our original sentence, the cat chased the mouse. I might just write that down so that we can remember it and compare. This is the sentence in the active form, where the cat is the subject and the cat is doing the chasing, or did the chasing because it's in the past tense, and the mouse is what the cat was chasing. Okay, and this is in the passive form, where the mouse is still the one being chased and it's chased by the cat. Okay, so let's see how we turn that into the passive form. Well, first of all, we take the object of the first sentence, the mouse, and we put it right up to the front, and it becomes the subject. Then we have to change the style of the verb and turn it into this be verb. In this instance it's was, because it's representing the mouse, which is the third person, and it's also in the past tense. So that's our be verb in whatever form that it needs to be, followed by the past participle. Now in this instance, chase, which is the simple past in this sentence, and chased, which is the past participle in this sentence, look exactly the same, but future examples will show us that they're not actually the same form of the verb. And then finally we get the subject, if we want to, and we put it after the word by. So the cat becomes a non-obligatory part of the sentence. So this is how we create the passive form. Now when we place the cat in this position after the word by at the end of the sentence, we call it the agent of the sentence. So it's not the subject, it's not the object, it's the agent. And the reason why it's the agent is because it is still the thing doing the object. It's just no longer in the subject position in the sentence. So it's called the agent of the object, or of the sentence, sorry. Now as we've seen, passive sentences can be written with an agent and without an agent. And this is particularly useful when we don't know the agent, or we don't consider the agent to be important to the story. For example, let's take the sentence, a thief stole my bag. In an agentless passive form, this becomes my bag was stolen. So let's write that down. Now we'll look at how we made that passive structure one more time. So first of all, we take the object that was stolen, which is my bag, and we place it right at the front, and that's our subject. We then add our be verb in the form that it needs to be, because it's the finite verb, in the form that it needs to be to match my bag. Now in this instance we have it in the past tense because it's already happened, and it's again in the third person singular, was. Okay, finally we make the verb change it from its original form into the past participle form. And in this instance, it's an example where you'll see that it is actually a different form of the verb, because steal, stole, stolen is an irregular verb, so it carries different endings. So this is the past participle form. I'm going to write past part form of the verb. Now this particular sentence doesn't need by a thief, because the very fact that someone stole something automatically makes them a thief. And so by a thief becomes fairly redundant. And it's not really the important part of the sentence. What's important is that the bag was stolen. And considering we don't know who stole it, it becomes fairly irrelevant. All right, I think we're getting the hang of the passive form, but let's have a look at it with another sentence. This sentence we're going to look at it with is, I have swept the floor. This one's a little bit different because we already have an auxiliary verb in this sentence. So let's see what happens to this one when we turn it into the passive form. So what do? We get the floor, and which is the object of this sentence, it's what we've swept, and we put it right to the front. And let's write that down. The floor is now in the subject position. Okay, so then we have to put our first auxiliary verb down, which is actually going to be have, but we need to change it now so that it matches the floor instead of I. And this means that we need to put it in its third person form, which is has. So I have, you have, it, she, he has. And now we can enter our be verb, and this time the be verb is going to be been. Because it's not the finite verb, it's not the verb that has to match the subject, has done that. Instead, it's the one that's going to be transformed and changed by the verb to have. So has been, and then the participial form is swept. And there it is, an agentless passive, I have swept the floor, to the floor has been swept. So the verb order is interesting here because the be verb has been brought down, but it doesn't go first, it follows the auxiliary that's already there, and therefore the form of it needs to change to match that auxiliary. Now if I'd like to, I can leave the sentence there. It's a very self-effacing statement and remove the agent from the sentence. However, if I want to say that I did it and claim the much deserved accolades, then I can add by me and make the sentence passive with an agent. So let's do that. By me. There you go, I did it. Notice also that because we've moved I out of the subject position, we have also changed the form of the pronoun to me. Alright, so how does this help with determining whether there's a direct object or not? Let's have a look at that. Now from our last video, we took a sentence, you have grown. So let's come back to that sentence now. Now you have grown all by itself has no direct object because, well, there's nothing following have grown, so it's a sentence complete unto itself. All right, so we know that there's no direct object there. But then we decided that we would put the ending an apple tree onto it. So let's do that now. You have grown an apple tree. Now we decided in the last video that this was in fact a direct object. And so now we're just going to test that theory or test that hypothesis. And the way we're going to do that is by turning it into the passive form. If it is a direct object, then it can be turned into the passive form. So let's try it. We'll put an apple tree first because it becomes the subject of the passive sentence. We'll keep have, but we'll turn it into has as a finite verb and put been to match have, grown. An apple tree has been grown. So, and then if I want to put the agent in, by you. You have grown an apple tree has been grown by you. So those two sentences semantically maintain the same meaning. So therefore, an apple tree is most definitely a direct object. Now the other one that we tried was the ending most uncommonly fat. So let's write that one down. Now what happens if we try to turn this one, this sentence, into the passive form? Let's see what happens. So first of all, we put what we might consider to be the direct object right at the front. So most uncommonly fat. Then we add the passive form of the verb, following of course the first auxiliary has, then been, and add the agent. Alright, now if we look at the semantics or the semantic meaning of this particular sentence in relation to its original active form, has it changed? You have grown most uncommonly fat. Most uncommonly fat has been grown by you. Well, I don't actually think that that second sentence makes any sense at all. So therefore, most uncommonly fat is not a direct object. So it looks like we got it all right in the last video, and that certainly confirms that for us. Now, if you're not certain whether something is a direct object, then you can try to put it into a passive structure, and it can be done. And if it can be done and the meaning remains the same, well then, yes, it was a direct object. And I think that's the point of this particular video, is how to use the passive structure to check for direct objects. In our next video, we look at a new function called the subject complement, and that's also sometimes called the predicate complement. And notice that it's complement with C-O-M-P-L-E-M-E-N-T, so we're not saying nice things to anybody at this point. So I look forward to that, and until then, thanks for watching The Language Code.